In today's video, we are comparing a custom-built Cinewhoop versus the DJI Avata. I want to see how close the Avata can come to my Shendrone Squirt, which has honestly been my workhorse for the past 2 years. Let's get started. What's good, everybody? Ken here. You're watching Original Dobo, and today's video is no doubt going to trigger the living shit out of the masses as we compare the Shendrone Squirt versus the DJI Avata. Now, my intention in this video is not to find a clear-cut winner because I don't think we will find one. I think for the most part, each of these are good at their own separate things. Maybe one is better than something else, or maybe one is really better than something else in a lot of different ways. But again, that's gonna be for you to decide after you see all the sample footage. Now, this is not going to be an apples to apples comparison. This is not going to be super scientific. So I don't want you to take this as a matter of fact. My conditions and my environments of testing may be different than yours. So keep that in mind when you were, utilizing this video to leverage any decisions you may make. All right, with that being said, let's just go ahead and get into some brief, build quality comparisons. All right, so let's take a look at the Shendrone Squirt. I've talked about this drone before. It is a Cinewhoop design. 4 props, standard prop configuration, motors are mounted upright, just very, very typical. These are TPU ducks, which means that if I hit something, I have a better chance of bouncing off of whatever I hit. The con, which I talked about with TPU ducks, you can hear it, you are much more prone to breaking props. But again, I'd rather break a prop than break a duck guard. However, I will say that on the Shendrones, at least the Squirt, I have broken a shit ton of these frames, and it's always a pain in the ass to replace a frame because you got to take everything off to swap everything over. So it is not impenetrable just because it is made out of carbon fiber. It is sporting a Hero 10 Black up top here. This is the Hero 10 Black Bones. It is a 6S build, and it is running DJI FPV. All right, let's take a look at the Avata really quickly. All right, so DJI Avata, same thing, Cinewhoop design, duck guards all the way around, a plastic design through and true. So if you break something, you're probably gonna break something pretty good here. So these ducks are replaceable. However, I fear that if you crash hard enough, you will be replacing these a lot more frequently than what you would on a Shendrone Squirt. Does have 5-blade props, smaller motors on this. This is a 4S build, and it does have a flight camera built in, so you're not mounting an additional camera to this. Overall, it is a much more refined build, obviously. It's a refined product, I guess, when you compare it to the Shendrone Squirt, but it's meant for a different purpose. All right, now that we've taken a look at the builds, let's take a look at the batteries of each of these. All right, so now we're gonna take a look at the batteries that each of these whoops use. Now, the Avata uses a smart battery, which has smart charging, smart discharging built in. It is a 4S battery, and pretty much for the most part, you can throw this on the charger and just walk away. Now, it's a 2240 milliamp hour battery, and it's good for roughly about 11 minutes of manual flight. This is a Tattu version 3.0, or I should say actually a version 4.0. It's a 1300 milliamp hour battery. It's a 6S battery, so that means there's 6 cells in here, and it packs quite a wallop. I can fly for roughly about 6 minutes using the Shendrone Squirt and my Hero 10 Bones. Now, one downside to this battery is if I walk away, I may not have a house to come back to. All right, now that we know a little bit more about the batteries, let's go ahead and take a look at the different controllers that you can use to fly each of these drones. All right, so each of these obviously have different RCs. One of them has a lot more options than the other, but let's just talk about it because, again, it's always good to take a deeper dive at what you can use for each of these drones. So when it comes to my Shendrone Squirt, I use a TBS Mambo. I love full-size radios. For me, this is absolutely a win. I love having the switches right up top here. I can quickly and easily access them. And I love having a sort of a full-size gimbal here. It just feels really comfortable. The nice thing about this particular radio is I can run multiple quads directly off this. It also has Tracer built in, and when I'm not running Tracer, I am running Crossfire for all of my long-range activities. But if Crossfire or Tracer isn't your cup of tea, you can always run Express LRS, you can run FrSky, which I don't know why you would want to do it, or you can even run Ghost. So you have a lot of options when it comes to connectivity and flyability when you build your own drone. And if you don't like this RC, you can use something entirely different, which is what I love so much about building a drone. All right, let's take a look at the ways you can fly the DJI Avata. So when it comes to the Avata, you only have two ways in which you can fly it. You can fly it with the FPV RC2, or you can fly it with the remote wanker. I've never been a fan of wanking, but I do like the DJI RC2. For me, it reminds me a lot of the TBS Tango, which I used for about a year and I got very, very comfortable with it. This RC here is very, very portable, which is probably one of my favorite things about it. If you're traveling really, really light, this is the easiest way to travel. You can just throw this in your bag with any of your other gear and not really have to worry too much about space. Of course, if you wanted to use the wanker, you could totally use the wanker and bring that with you as well. But for me, I just really, really, really love this RC. It fits very, very comfortable, and I love that I can take the sticks and stow them to the side. But unfortunately, if you wanted to fly the Avata with anything else, you're shit out of luck because these are the only two ways in which you can fly it. All right, let's talk about the connectivity between each of these. Alrighty, when it comes down to connectivity, this is running the DJI FPV system, and the FPV system is still, in my opinion, the best digital system that's on the market today. And the only thing that could beat the DJI FPV system is DJI itself. Not even Caddx or Walksnail or the Avatar system, whatever the hell they want to call it, can hold a candle to the DJI system that's been out for the past 3+ years, which is absolutely crazy when you think about it. Now, with that being said, I have shot a shit ton of sample footage for you between these two different systems and with the cameras on board, both the Hero 10 Bones and the Avata camera. I also have some DVR from the Avata and from the Squirt, so you can take a look at it. This is a rather long clip. It's about 11 minutes of footage, but I wanted to give you as close to a consistent flight as you possibly could get, so you can make a good decision between the differences between the cameras. Hopefully you find this interesting, so let's go ahead and play that footage, and I will be back after it's done playing. Alrighty, so what did you think of that footage? Honestly, I was pretty impressed with the Avata's camera. I think it held its own against the Tiro 10 Bones. Now, one thing to keep in mind with the Bones, I do like to film in the natural profile, which is not quite as saturated. Also, I didn't do any other settings. I didn't adjust ISO. Both of the cameras were set to automatic because I just wanted to see what they would be able to do. Now, I didn't run that through Real Steady. I wanted it to be apples to apples the best I could, so I did run it through GyroFlow, and I honestly think GyroFlow does an amazing job of stabilizing the footage. Personally, I think it's gonna come down to personal preference. I love GoPro footage, but I also liked what I was seeing out of the Avata. I think there's less of a case of a need to replace the camera or run a Hero 10 or anything else on the Avata. And as far as cameras go, I still think the Hero 10 Bones is the best camera for a Cinewhoop currently today if you are building. So honestly, I really like both of these cameras. I'm not gonna draw a clear winner there either. As far as transmission goes, this is where it's absolutely no contest. The Avata has the better transmission. Even running this in 25 megabits, which I ran it in 50 and 25. I'll tell you, when I ran the test in 50 megabits on the Squirt, I was not getting nearly the same range, and it was not nearly as fair of a comparison. When I moved it back down to 25 megabits on the Squirt, I was getting much more range, and it seemed like much more fairer of a comparison between these two different systems. So I will just say this, system-wise, the transmission on the Avata is much stronger, much better, much more consistent, and that's very, very apparent in the DVR footage. You'll notice as I went down underneath that gully, that this was not breaking up and it was still holding true at 50 megabits, while this was dipping down to 15 and even 12 megabits. At some times you would get the little blotchy blocking. It's just no contest as far as the transmission. And when it comes down to latency, you'll notice the screen, the latency was very, very similar. I would say at some points the Avata was definitely much better than the DJI digital system. So I don't think that if you fly digital, you'll notice much of a change between the two. I will just tell you that, you know, as far as the standpoint that I come from, the Avata does have the much more enjoyable experience as far as flying goes. Now, when it comes down to goggles, I still love these goggles even though they are big. And I love them right now only because they fit so comfortably. I still am battling light leaks on these, and because I don't have any foam to put in here, it is just not as comfortable on my face. And I think a lot of people when they first fly this will tend to agree that there needs to be some other option as far as foam goes, because this right here isn't cutting it. The other thing I kept battling was my goggles were fogging up. And there isn't a fan actively in here helping you cool down your face, as to where on these here, I never really felt like I had any problems with fogging goggles. I mean, if it was super, super humid, yes, my goggles would fog up sometimes, but not nearly as bad as this. You probably saw I was standing next to the bleachers, and I was standing there trying to keep myself out of the sun because literally my goggles were fogging up. So definitely need better foam here. These are definitely a lot more portable, but they are not as comfortable. So sometimes, you know, it's a trade-off. You get portability, but you lose some of that comfort. Anyways, I hope this video was insightful for you. I don't really have a clear-cut winner. I will just say this, that if you're somebody who is learning, then yeah, the Avata is the easier drone to use and to get right out of the box and start flying. However, if you're a little bit more experienced, take the time, build yourself a Cinewhoop, and I think you'll have a lot of fun flying this. And not only that, it's great for professional work. You can really capture some amazing, amazing images straight out of the gate with the Hero 10 Bones and a Slam Squirt. By far, this is pretty much my favorite build out of them all. And I have had a lot of builds throughout the year. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next video. As always, stay original.
I heard they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I want the money, the power, respect, and I heard you on so-and-so, you're not a threat.
That's the only way I'm gonna handle this logically. I'm just gonna call you names. I'm
Trust
gonna
me
belittle
when
you.
I say that it
You're
can
terrible.
handle and
you
be
fly a
just
plastic
as
piece of
good
shit.
as that.
How's that make
Why
you
don't
feel?
you put that up against this?
I don't
Why
care
do you
how
gotta
big it
start name
makes you
calling?
feel.
Why do you gotta start name calling?
Good, because that's how I'm gonna handle it. I'm gonna handle it how people handle it in the forums. They're just gonna belittle
Winner
you.
takes
And
all.
I'm gonna
If
be like a
this
real life
beats
keyboard
that,
warrior
I
because
get
I fly
your
real
quad.
FPV.
That's it. That's how we're gonna
fake
do this.
FPV.
Winner takes all in an FPV
Fine, you
battle.
wanna take it? Fine. And
Winner
then you go
takes
again
all.
with the name calling.
If that can be
this,
you damn
I will
forum
give you this
pilot.
quad.
You're a damn
Even though you
forum
can't fly
pilot.
it,
That's
because
all
you
you
don't
want to
even know
be.
how
You
to
want to be a
fly real
freaking
FPV.
forum pilot.
You're terrible.
There you go. You're calling
pansy.
me names. Here we go. Come on.
You smell
come
like
on.
bananas.